But when you're in high school and people are like, so what are you going to do when you graduate? You can't say like, I'm going to move out of the country and get married. That just sounds kind of weird. So, I told people I was moving to Mexico to help my friend teach English because my now husband, he had a school down there where he taught English as a foreign language.
Oh, cool.
And so I was like, I'll come down and help you run your English school, also knowing I would eventually get married to him. So I moved out of the country and I lived in Mexico for 3 years. I got married 1 year after moving down there. So 2 of the years I lived there, we were married and started a family, had my first kid, and then we moved up here to Grand Junction for different reasons, but we came here because we knew we had a foundation here, and we wanted to get my husband's legal paperwork taken care of so he could be a resident in the U.S. And then we are like, once that's done, we can go live anywhere in the U.S. And here we are. We're still here.
Welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Kooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn. Today, I'm joined by Megan Alfaro, who's the owner of Colorado Baby out of Grand Junction, Colorado. Megan, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I understand that you were born and raised in Grand Junction.
Yep, I am a Grand Junction native.
Awesome.
All the way.
What was it like growing up?
Well, I mean, I don't know any different, so this is home to me. I have a younger brother and my mom and dad. I actually recently bought my childhood home from my parents. So they moved into the house that I now live in when I was 2.5 years old.
Wow.
And it's just always been my home, and very excited to continue having it be my home.
Yeah.
My brother and I went to all the local schools, grew up in the public school system, played Little League, just like that. It's kind of funny though,
That's
like
awesome.
being a Colorado native, you'd think that means I do all the Colorado things, but I don't know. We went camping as a kid. We'd go camping and some skiing.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I would only imagine that Grand Junction has shifted quite a bit in population and some of the dynamics to it. When I was 11, my family moved us from Chicago to a small town in Michigan, Traverse City. And to me at 11, it was just like overnight freedom, like small town. All of a sudden I had the entire town. Was Grand Junction, I mean, it has to have been a smaller town. How much freedom did you have as a child just to explore and cruise around?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to understand the size of a place when you're a kid. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, it's like a ton of stuff has been built and it's grown a lot, and I can point stuff out to my kids and be like, I remember when that was a field. And then I feel like an old man when I say that, I'm like, this is weird to say these things. But where I lived, I grew up in Orchard Mesa.
Okay.
And where we were at actually backed up to some BLM land. So my brother and I, well, my brother kind of did, mostly me. I would go play back there. It was kind of by the old Spanish Trail for people that are from this area. And I would just go play back in those hills, as I call them, all the time. I had a tree house back there. I just kind of lived back there. My parents actually have no idea how far I went. I would go really far.
Yes.
And I had my dog I would take with me. But I felt a lot of freedom. My parents gave me a lot of freedom. I'm sure part of that too was just the time I grew up in. They'd be like, you can go ride your bike, but you have to check back in 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So I'd have those touch points with them, but I just kind of crawled all over the place near my house.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember that with my kids and extend that to them to a degree, but I don't know. It's kind of a different world.
Hey everybody, this is Luke from Cooler Garage Doors. Just want to take a quick second to talk about our sponsor, Sommar Garage Door Openers. In our opinion, Sommars are the highest quality product on the market today. We recommend them for all of our residential garage door installs because of the variety of features they include, such as Wi-Fi connectivity and safety features such as a fixed chain, which moves along a secure rail to ensure your garage door opens quietly and safely. Click on the link in the description to learn more about Sommar Garage Door Openers.
It is different. I get that. It's very different.
Yeah.
Have you ever left Grand Junction?
Yes. Just like most kids that grew up here. And I think I don't think this is just Grand Junction. I think it's just in general, wherever you grow up, you're like, I got to get out of this place. It's the worst place ever. So I remember feeling that in high school, like I am leaving and I am not coming back.
Very.
So I moved all the way to Mexico, and I moved there like a month after I graduated high school. I knew a guy, which is my husband, and I knew I was going to get married to him. But when you're in high school and people are like, so what are you going to do when you graduate? You can't say like, I'm going to move out of the country and get married. That just sounds kind of weird. So, I told people I was moving to Mexico to help my friend teach English because my now husband, he had a school down there where he taught English as a foreign language.
Oh, cool.
And so I was like, I'll come down and help you run your English school, also knowing I would eventually get married to him. So I moved out of the country and I lived in Mexico for 3 years. I got married 1 year after moving down there. So 2 of the years I lived there, we were married and started a family, had my first kid. And then we moved up here to Grand Junction for different reasons. But we came here because we knew we had a foundation here, and we wanted to get my husband's legal paperwork taken care of so he could be a resident in the U.S. And then we are like, once that's done, we can go live anywhere in the U.S. And here we are. We're still here.
It's awesome.
In my childhood home. And I have zero regrets. I love it here. Absolutely love it.
I love this story. Tell me about Colorado Baby and how that was formed and a little bit about what the focus is.
Yeah, so I am an entrepreneur at heart. I have started businesses, I use that term lightly. Basically, since I came out of the womb, I have been trying to sell things. And so the first thing I remember was around the age of 4, I colored on rocks and sold them as paperweights to my parents and neighbors. And these neighbors are still my neighbors. Like that's how cool my neighborhood is.
Awesome.
It's basically like a modern day Mayberry at this point. But anyways, every year it was different things. So I did lemonade stands. I sold friendship bracelets. I sold pictures that I traced out of drawing books and colored them. I sold pencils and notebooks. Everything, anything and everything under the sun. So that's just kind of the way I'm wired. So when I graduated high school, like I said, I moved down to Mexico. I helped my husband run his school. That again was scratching that itch of running a business. And then when we moved up here, I was about to have my second child, and I used cloth diapers with my first and was planning on continuing to use them with my second son. And I came up here. I was going to buy more cloth diapers. I had bought some for my first son from the local diaper service that had diapered me as a baby.
Okay.
And they would sell their cloth diapers that could no longer be used in their diaper service. They'd sell them as rags. So I had bought them and used them as diapers for my first son because they were very affordable.
Yeah.
So I planned on doing that with the second, but when we got here, we came to find out the diaper service had closed. They had retired. I was like, wow, so where do I buy diapers? And I couldn't buy any locally. I had to order them online. So that's when I was like, well, I ordered some. I used these modern cloth diapers and loved them and was like, wow, someone should sell these here locally. I'm going to figure out how to set up a real business, you know, as an adult paying taxes in the U.S. And so I did that, and I set up what is now Colorado Baby. At the time, it had a different name, and it was just cloth diapers. And I took $250 cash that I had left over from our wedding a few years prior. I invested that in diapers, a Rubbermaid tote, and got set up legally. And I would meet with people in their house. I would post on Craigslist because Facebook was not much of a thing at that time. So I'd post on Craigslist and meet with people, teach them about the diapers, and then hope and pray that they would order some from me. And then I would take all that money from the sale of diapers and put it right back in so I could have more diapers to show the next person. And I continued to do that over and over. And about 2 years in, I decided I didn't want to do it out of Rubbermaid totes, and it had kind of moved into a room in the apartment we were living in at the time. I needed something more, so that's when we got our first location that we were in for a couple of years. And I cash flowed it the whole way through. I never took on any debt to do it because I did not want any debt in the process.
What an iconic bootstrap story. I love it. I love it. I mean, that's just tenacity and grit. Because I can only imagine.
And stress.
Yeah, right? Like, I started Koolers Garage Doors without a dime. And I just cut a deal, and at the very beginning of my journey, it was house painting. So I cut a deal and took the deposit to get a tool and put some of the pieces in place. And then it's bootstrapping, right? Yeah. And it is grit. It is tenacious. And so how long ago did that start? How old is Colorado Baby now?
Yeah, so I started it in January 2008.
Awesome.
So I think that puts me at 15 years.
Awesome.
Right? I don't know. I think it's 15, 14, something like that.
Yeah, time's wild. And then 15. And then to navigate a pandemic and continued wonkiness.
Oh man, all the things. Yes. All of the things.
Here's a little bit more of a depth question. You're recognizing that this is who you are, and I love that. You've got a really great description of your story on your website. And whether it's a young person that maybe catches wind of this conversation, or, somebody that is even older that maybe hesitated, but yet has this internal drive and desire, what would you like people to know about pursuing dreams? And, maybe the cost of not pursuing versus the cost of pursuing. Like there's a give and take there, but what would you tell somebody around just pursuing dreams and getting after it?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot there. There's this concept of the principle of the path. And so the thought process is, if you want to get to point B from point A, you don't just start walking aimlessly. Like you need to find a path and follow that path. And whether you choose a path or not, even by not choosing a path, you are choosing a path because you're going to end up somewhere.
Yes.
It may just not be where you want to end up. So I made very, very intentional choices at young ages, as a teenager, as a young person in my 20s, I made very intentional choices that continued me in the direction that I knew I wanted to go. Now, did I know that I wanted to own a baby store on Main Street? No, it wasn't that clear. But I would just say the main thing is like making very intentional choices about who you are and where you're headed, and because you're going to follow a path regardless.
Yeah.
You're headed somewhere, and you don't have to necessarily know where it is, but the choices you make today impact the choices or impact who you will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So it really comes from the core of who you are. So as far as like follow your dreams, whatever that means, I think it's more important to just know, I don't want to know if it's know who you are, but have some sort of grounding point. For me, it was, or it is, my faith.
Oh, sure.
And just like really clinging to the Bible and what I read in there. And so that to me is really like my center point that I can follow from.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to have something like that. And I think it needs to be something outside of yourself. I don't think we as people are dependable enough to follow our heart. I feel like that can be a very deceptive thing because you can change over time. I don't know if that helps at all, but I'm really big about making very intentional choices.
Yeah, I love that.
And things don't just happen. Like there's got to be some intentionality behind it.
I love that. That goes into, I think the way we connected was through some of your leadership work, and you talk about intentionality, and there's a communal aspect to being intentional about how we think forward for the design of downtown, of where Grand Junction, the community, can play at large. Can you share some of the work that you've done with some of the community collaborations over the last few years and where that might be going?
Yeah. When I started my business, and really when I was a few years into it, I had no idea what I was doing. A lot of days I still don't know what I'm doing, but I definitely had no clue what I was doing. I was kind of I was making stuff up the whole way.
Yeah.
And I got plugged in with people along the way, and one of them was one of my vendors, and she was willing to sit down with me at one of the product shows. She sat down with me for an hour, and she's like, you can ask me any questions. And so I just asked her questions about like how she got to where she was with her business and different things like that. And it was so helpful to me. And then she did that one other time for me. She was passing through Colorado. I was in Denver, so we met up for coffee. So I had that opportunity. I've had women do that in my life as far as motherhood goes. And I just found that very, very valuable, very helpful to me. And I couldn't believe that these people invested that time in me at no cost or anything. Like they just did this, like they just gave me their time. And so as I've continued to grow and mature in my own skill set, I've just like been like, man, I want to do that for someone else. I want to give back, whatever trendy term you want to use, whatever, gross. I want to be able to be that for someone else, like someone took time to invest in me and maybe they didn't think much of it. And if I can do that for someone else, then I feel like it's a way of, I don't know, I don't owe anyone anything. It's not repaying anything. It's just continuing on with that same methodology. And so I'm very passionate about the downtown because it obviously impacts me directly, having a retail business on Main Street in Grand Junction. But also I just feel like these are my people. There's so many different avenues that you can put energy into, whether it's into kids in college or kids in high school or fellow business owners or new moms or whatever the topic is. And so for me, what's very relevant is the downtown,
Okay.
and then women that are becoming moms, like new moms. So the downtown has either hosted things or events have happened down here that are for business owners or people that are new to the business world. And so for me, that was like, oh, I would love to participate in this and help out or, speak at these events if it's relevant.
I love that. What are we excited about over the next few years? What do you see happening either in downtown or Grand Junction community as a whole?
Oh, I don't know. I see there's obviously a lot of growth happening here, and there's, if you feel kind of iffy with it when you're from here and you're like, oh, but I just love my little Grand Junction, and but growth it's a good thing for business, but I also love the size of Grand Junction. I don't know. I guess I'm just excited to see what's coming from the growth, and just personally in my life, I'm sure the next few years are going to be changing a lot because I've got kids that are, my oldest is about to turn 17. He's a junior this year in high school. So I just imagine the flow of my life is going to change some.
Okay.
And I don't know, I'd like to continue to see the downtown thriving and growing. And I think it will. I feel like it's doing well. We've got some really good anchor businesses and restaurants down here. So it'll be interesting to see there are so many new people that have moved here and just kind of see where they settle and the new housing, things that are happening in the downtown area and who that's going to bring down here. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic with the growth of the area.
Yeah.
I just hope that it's done in a way that the town can sustain it well, that it doesn't have negative impacts.
Yeah, I get that. I fully recognize that. From my hometown, Traverse City, it was a tourist-based town, and it grew a lot while I was there. Being in Gunnison for 20 plus years, I've seen this shift across the Western Slope, right? And I think especially since COVID, we've seen an influx of people moving onto the Western Slope, and Grand Junction, Gunnison, all these small towns are getting a different, it's not better or worse, but there's definitely a different type of individual coming from larger towns, larger cities, right? And they have different expectations, a little bit different culture. So that is going to influence us for better and for worse. There's going to be a little bit of both. But you're speaking into kind of collaboration, which leads me to my next question. And from your perspective, how might businesses and community leaders work together even more for the greater good and have that intentionality around, all right, how do we grow?
Yeah, I think there needs to be, open dialogue between those two sectors and to foster that collaboration. A few years ago, it was actually right before 2020, so I think it was probably 2019. I was part of a community task force thing. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was for creating the new, basically downtown Grand Junction planning book. Like, what is downtown Grand Junction going to look like over the next X amount of years? And I was really honored to be able to be a part of that group and speak into that and talk about what we want to see down here. And that whole planning book hadn't been touched since the 80s.
Wow.
And so we were updating it from the 80s. And it was just really, really cool to be on that because there was collaboration from all sorts of different sectors. There were business owners from downtown. There were people from the college. There were people from city council. It was definitely people that would have an impact in the community, that were in there and speaking to what they wanted to see.
Yeah.
And then 2020 happened, and that kind of just railroaded a lot of things temporarily. And so I'm hoping to see more of that coming back into conversation and see the reality of different ideas that we talked about during that collaboration, see the reality of those come to fruition. And that's going to happen through, again, continued conversations with city council and with other business owners. And that's just a trap, is you can fall into just talking or complaining with other business owners, and then things don't happen. Like, you've got to not just bicker amongst yourselves, like you need to do something, like take it to more people. So I don't know. I think we just have to be really cognizant to not get stuck in talking with each other, but talking outside of our scope with other people.
Yeah, agreed. I think it can be so easy to get siloed, and yet there is the real opportunity and the possibility gets created out of sometimes difficult, challenging conversations with multiple entities at the same table.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that perspective. How might folks that want to get engaged, either with you directly, learn more about Colorado Baby, and potentially find ways of collaboration, how do people find Megan?
Yeah. Well, so we have a website, coloradobabyonline.com. So that's one way to connect with the store and ultimately with me. Just sending me an email. So Megan, MEGAN at coloradobabyonline.com. That comes directly to me. Our social media outlets, so specifically Instagram is where we're the most active.
Awesome.
So if anybody messages me on Instagram, it comes to me. I'm the one that gets the messages. So that would be another way.
What's your handle on Instagram? Is it
Colorado Baby GJ?
Cool.
Yeah.
I will be sure to add these to show notes and encourage people to reach out. As we wrap up, Megan, are there any final thoughts or words, whether it's providing inspiration or just more generalized?
Yeah, well, one thing I'd say is, personally, I love to talk about business stuff, owning a business, starting a business, living debt-free. I love leadership type stuff. I love to chat about, obviously, having children. I've got 8 of my own. I homeschool. I love talking with new moms. So I would say, like, all of those are very relevant topics and I love to chat with people. And if they ever want to talk, I am more than happy to interact about any of those topics and beyond. So yeah, I would just add that in there.
I love that. The amount of accomplishments that you have achieved as far as a family, business. I love the, it's authenticity, and it's also like an integration of knowing that you've been an entrepreneur all your life. For me, it took a long time. I say I'm a late blooming entrepreneur because this is definitely who I am, but it took a long time to shed and kind of realize that to myself. And I'm hearing just through your story and shares that it was pretty integrated all along the way. And I think that's really, really cool. I really appreciated this conversation, and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for collaborating. I think the Grand Junction downtown is one of the most beautiful downtowns on the Western Slope. And I know that that's a team effort on multiple fronts. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Megan. If you're listening, don't hesitate to reach out to Megan. Like I said, leadership, family, collaboration, that's what she is all about. And again, Megan, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, you bet. Take care.